As we look towards the final races of 2024, it appears that the championship will end with a whimper rather than a bang. So I think it's time to look back upon better times and look at 10 times the championship did end with a bang, with the top 10 championship deciders. A little note here, this isn't a list of the top 10 last races of the season, although a lot of them were the final race of the season, but instead the race in which the championship was decided. With that being said, let's get into the list with number 10. Number 10, Adelaide, 1986. The final race of 1986 saw the conclusion of a three-way title battle between Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost. Mansell led the championship by 6 points from Prost, who was 1 point ahead of Piquet. Mansell only needed to finish third or better to take his first world title. Mansell would take pole from Piquet, while Prost would have to settle for fourth as Senna would take third. Piquet would take the lead from the start, while Mansell and Prost would fall to fourth and fifth respectively. Mansell would fight back to third, enough to win the title, until, on lap 64, his left rear tyre exploded while travelling at 180 miles per hour. Mansell would show immense skill to control the car and park it in a runoff area and not hit anything. Out of fear that the same thing could happen to his Williams teammate Nelson Piquet, the team called him into the pits for fresh tyres, which gave Prost the lead. Prost would win the race by just 4 seconds ahead of Piquet and would take the title from Mansell by 2 points, giving him his second world title in a row. Number 9, Abu Dhabi 2010. For the only time in F1 history, we had a 4-way battle for the world title going into the final race of the season. Ferrari's Fernando Alonso led the championship from Red Bull's Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel and McLaren's Lewis Hamilton. Alonso was very much the favourite going in, leading the championship by 8 points from Webber, 15 points from Vettel and a massive 24 points from Lewis Hamilton. Vettel took pole on that day with Hamilton alongside. Alonso was third and Webber was down in fifth. Vettel was able to keep the lead at the start of the race. Alonso and Webber would both pit on lap 16, but then would come across their most difficult challenge of the day, Vitaly Petrov, who had pitted on lap 2 and now had track position and was able to keep the 2 title challengers behind him for the entire race. Meanwhile, back at the front of the race, Jenson Button pitted, which gave Vettel back the lead, and at the end of the race, Vettel would win with Hamilton in second, whilst Alonso and Webber were still behind Petrov in 7th and 8th, meaning Vettel won his first world title by 4 points from Fernando Alonso. Number 8, Brazil 2007. The 2007 championship was competed between reigning double-time world champion Fernando Alonso and his rookie teammate Lewis Hamilton, whilst Kimi Raikkonen still had an outside chance while being 7 points behind the championship leader Hamilton and 3 points behind Alonso. Championship leader Hamilton took pole by just over 1/10 of a second from Raikkonen, while Alonso had to settle for 4th. Hamilton would have a disastrous start, going from pole to 4th in the first 3 corners, being overtaken by his title challengers and Raikkonen's Ferrari teammate Felipe Massa. Hamilton would then lock up into turn 4 and fall to 8th, and it would only get worse for him as he suffered a gearbox failure and fell down to 18th, and from there was still in the race but very much out of contention for the world title. Kimi would take the lead of the race from his teammate on lap 50, and as they crossed the line on the final lap, he would win the race with Alonso in 3rd and Hamilton in 7th, meaning that both Alonso and Hamilton finished the year on 109 points, but Raikkonen would take the title by 1 point. Number 7, Abu Dhabi 2016. For the 3rd year in a row, the top 2 in the Drivers' Championship were the Mercedes pair of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. Rosberg would enter the final race of the year at Abu Dhabi as the championship leader for the first time, leading by 12 points, meaning that if Rosberg finished 3rd or higher, he would become world champion. Hamilton took pole with Rosberg alongside him. Throughout the race, the 2 Mercedes were clearly the quickest, as they had been all year, but after initial pit stops, Rosberg would have to battle Max Verstappen in order to get back into the battle with Lewis Hamilton. As we got to the closing period of the race, Hamilton led with Rosberg in 2nd, which was not good enough for Hamilton to win the title, so he slowed down and backed Rosberg up into the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, despite the pleading of his Mercedes team to speed up. Unfortunately for Hamilton, it wasn't enough and he would win the race, but Rosberg finished second, which was good enough to crown him world champion. 5 days after this race, Rosberg announced his decision to retire from Formula 1 and would exit the sport as champion. Number 6. Adelaide, 1994. 1994 had been a difficult year with Formula 1, with the death of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger earlier in the year. But coming out of this was a title battle with two young drivers going for their first world championships, with Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. Schumacher went into the final race leading the championship by just 1 point over Hill. Pole on the day was taken by Damon's teammate Nigel Mansell, while Schumacher was in second and Hill in third. Schumacher and Hill would jump Mansell at the start, and Schumacher would lead. And this is the way it would stay up until lap 36, where Schumacher went wide at the East Terrace corner and tapped the wall. He would rejoin the track and Damon went for a move down the inside, when Schumacher would turn into Hill with the two colliding. Schumacher's race ended instantly, but Damon would continue, would have to retire the car due to suspension damage. Adrian Newey was the designer of the Williams car that year and said in his book he wasn't at the race because he was focused on the 1995 Williams, but also said if he had been there he would have told Damon to continue with the hope of him scoring just 2 points. Alas, Damon did not continue, and because neither scored points, Michael Schumacher won his first world title while stood by the side of the track. Number 5, Japan, 1989. Now this is possibly the most famous teammate world title battle of all time. Prost and Senna. This was the ultimate climax of their teammate battle. Prost had already announced that he would be leaving McLaren for Ferrari at the end of the year, and he came into this race leading by 16 points with 2 races to go, meaning that Senna had to win the Japanese Grand Prix for the title to go to the final race of the year. Senna took pole by over 1.7 seconds from Prost in second, but when the race started, Prost was able to take the lead. The two would fight throughout the race until they would collide. Prost would leave his car while Senna received help from the marshals who pushed him down an escape road and back into the race. Senna would cross the line in first place, but immediately afterward would be disqualified for missing the chicane, and the championship would go to Prost. Number 4. Japan, 1976. The 1976 season was so dramatic they made a film about it, and it culminated at the Japanese Grand Prix with a title battle between Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Lauda went into the race as the championship leader by 3 points over Hunt. Mario Andretti would take a surprise pole position with Hunt second and Lauda third. But on the day there was torrential rain, even to the point that debates took place over whether to cancel the race or not. The race would go ahead and Hunt took the lead from the start, whereas Lauda would pull into the pits and withdraw from the race, with the memory of his crash at the Nürburgring only 2 months previous still very fresh in his mind, saying, "My life is worth more than a title." All Hunt had to do was finish 4th to become world champion, and for most of the race this seemed cemented, but as the rain cleared and the track dried, he lost pace to the other cars and would fall down to 3rd. Then on lap 68 of 73, Hunt had tyre issues and had to pit for fresh tyres, and fell down the order once again. With 5 laps to go, Hunt fought back and made multiple overtakes, and as he crossed the line on the final lap, he was told he finished 5th, giving the title to Lauda. But after a quick deliberation, it was found that he was actually 3rd, which made him the 1976 world champion by just 1 point. Number 3, Brazil 2012. The 2012 season for many is seen as one of the greatest of all time. 6 world champions were on the grid, the most to ever share the grid at the same time. The first 7 races were won by 7 different drivers, including a win for the eternal meme lord, Pastor Maldonado. And the 2012 season had Kamui Kobayashi. What's not to love? The 2012 season also had the incredible Vettel-Alonso title battle. Vettel was looking for his 3rd world title in a row, whereas Alonso was looking to return to the top of the championship after his 2nd world title in 2006. Vettel went into the race with a 13-point lead, meaning that if he finished 4th, he would secure the world title. Qualifying would go badly for Alonso, who could only manage 8th compared to Vettel's 4th. But the start of the race would go much worse for Vettel, who was hit by Bruno Senna and went down to last place. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso pulled an incredible double overtake on Mark Webber and Felipe Massa to get up to third. Then came the rain and Alonso went off the track, losing third to Hülkenberg and nearly losing more places to Webber and Massa. Meanwhile, Vettel was fighting back and was now up to 8th. At the front, Nico Hülkenberg and Lewis Hamilton had contact whilst fighting over the lead, which pushed Alonso up to 3rd. Then he would pass his teammate and get up to 2nd, and in the closing stages the rain came down even heavier and Paul di Resta crashed, bringing out his safety car. The race would then end behind the safety car, with Alonso finishing 2nd and Vettel finishing 6th, giving Vettel his 3rd world title by 3 points. Number 2, Abu Dhabi 2021. The most dramatic F1 season in recent memory saw 2 of Formula 1's all-time greats go head-to-head. Lewis Hamilton looking for his 8th world title, whilst Max Verstappen was looking for his 1st. The season had swayed back and forth and had been full of controversy from the first race, but the final race would deliver more drama and more controversy than anyone had expected. Both title contenders came into the race on equal points, while Verstappen was leading the championship due to his 9 wins compared to Hamilton's 8 wins on countback. Verstappen would take pole, but Hamilton would take the lead into turn 1. Verstappen dived down the inside of the chicane at turn 6 to try and retake the lead, and Hamilton would have to cut the corner, arguing that he'd been forced off by Verstappen. After the first pit stops for Verstappen and Hamilton, the lead was given to Verstappen's Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez, who was told to hold up Hamilton to try and cut down the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen. An incredible defensive display from Perez saw Hamilton's gap go from 11 to 1.3 seconds between him and Verstappen. Hamilton's overall pace had been much better and he was able to stretch the lead back to 4 seconds, until lap 53 of 58, when Nicholas Latifi crashed while dueling with the Haas of Mick Schumacher, thus bringing out the safety car. Hamilton stayed out whilst Verstappen would pit for new soft tyres. At this point, 5 lap cars found themselves between Hamilton and Verstappen in the safety car queue, and they were told they would not be able to unlap themselves. Then, a lap later, the order was changed for just the lap cars between Hamilton and Verstappen to unlap themselves. The race was resumed, and on the final lap, Verstappen, with cramp in his leg, went for a daring dive bomb into turn 5 and took the lead from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton would fight back but was unable to retake the position, and as they crossed the line, Max Verstappen would win the race and his 1st World Championship. Number 1, Brazil 2008. The 2008 season would once again see 2 drivers going head-to-head for their 1st world title, Ferrari's Felipe Massa and McLaren's Lewis Hamilton, in just his 2nd year in Formula 1. Hamilton led the championship by 7 points as we got to the final race of the season at Massa's home country of Brazil. Massa took pole whilst Hamilton was in 4th. Massa needed to win this race with Hamilton 6th or lower for Massa to become the first Brazilian world champion since 1991. Massa would keep the lead in a damp Interlagos, with Hamilton staying down in 4th. Massa would be the first to change to dry tyres, with Hamilton following him the next lap. But with less than 10 laps to go, Massa still led the race with Hamilton in 4th, and then the rain returned. Hamilton changed to wets first, with Massa pitting the lap after, but at this point in the race the rain was not falling hard enough, and Timo Glock and Sebastian Vettel, who'd stayed out on dry tyres, had the pace advantage on 4th place man Lewis Hamilton. Glock would pass Hamilton and demote him to 5th, then Vettel would pass him and push him down to 7th. On lap 69 of 71, meaning that with Felipe Massa in the lead, this was good enough for Massa to win the title. On the final lap of the race, the rain began to fall even harder as Massa crossed the line at his home race, with his home fans and family celebrating him becoming the 2008 world champion. But little did they know, 2 corners behind them, Timo Glock was now struggling on a much wetter track with dry tyres, and Hamilton passed him to get back 6th place, which was all he needed to take the title from Massa and become world champion for the first time by 1 point, as Massa's family had to be told that he'd lost the title on the penultimate corner of the last lap of the last race of the season. So there you go, that is our top 10 championship deciders. Let me know what you think. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.